I'm Brad.
I'm Scott.
This is Curiosity.
And we are here in Austin, Texas, doing a South by Southwest takeover, and we're with Juliana Garaizer. Juliana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We got you fresh off the stage from doing your panel. How was the experience?
Well, South by Southwest never disappoints. I've been 4 times here, always, presenting, networking, and it gets better. So I'm really pleased that this year there's a climate track, and I'm really pleased to be part of it. After CERAWeek it was not last week,
Earlier
it's this
this week.
Yeah, so coming fresh from that to South by is something, but definitely never disappoints. I was able to be with people I cannot meet in Houston, like, the Kaufman Fellows group I belong to. We do leadership in VC, the Latinx House, the Innovation Hub that they put together for the first time, Culture House, and of course all the great programming happening. I was even presenting at the Philly Activate Philly House, so that's been pretty cool.
That's awesome. So I think my favorite aspect of South by is the serendipity that happens here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's special and it's rare and it's like some form of magic. And so from that perspective, what has been the most serendipitous moment you feel like you've had thus far at the South by experience?
I love that you're saying that, because that's what I'm always looking forward the most. Who am I going to meet, and who? I know that it's going to be totally random. And so I went to this first reception that I had with the Kaufman Fellows, and Laura Gilcrease, who now runs Alberta Innovates, was there. And she's been a great mentor for many years. And it's been since she moved to Alberta, I hadn't seen her. And it was really great to be with her and see how we can collaborate more with what they're doing. So that was a huge highlight. But then even meeting you at a random,
Sure, yeah.
It's
Showing
what
up
is
at
the
a
Houston?
late night
I
mixer.
went to the Moneta. I think I was crashing because I love party crashing. That's something. Oh, and I panel crashed at the Latinx Innovation Hub. And
Wait,
I was
is panel crashing you go up on the panel?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I know. I was there.
I want to
Just get her out of the audience and back
It was
up on
so
stage.
funny because I was like, okay, I'm going to go to this Latinx Innovation Hub. Is anybody coming? And a friend was like, well, I hope you're coming for my panel. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. But I said yes. And then suddenly he told me, the other panelists might not be getting here on time. So you're up.
Wild.
And I'm like, sure.
Gotta be
that's
prepared.
what I like. Yeah.
So
That's
one of the
amazing.
questions we like to dig into on Curiosity is you spend your day venture capital, climate tech, like you said, Latinx, a whole variety of things. Are there sort of some moments that you reflect on, or even an inflection point?
What was that curious moment?
Oh, plug in. Okay, so I've always been very global in nature, maybe because I'm from this part of Spain that is neither Spain nor France, this Basque region in the middle, in between.
With amazing food.
Yes,
And drink.
And drinks, yeah. And then my dad was always a backpacker, so he would always bring these amazing slides from Angkor Wat, Tibet, Peru. And I was always I want to be there. I want to do that, but I don't want to do it during the summer. I mean, I want to live that life. And that's what led me to Singapore, my first job, where I was working in the Spanish embassy for the Trade Commission. And then I continued there with Citi and international career there. And then I said, you know what, this is not cutting it for me. I need more impact. And I didn't know what it was, but I decided to do a master's at London Business School. And I was lucky enough to go to Berkeley, visited Silicon Valley, and that was it. I was hooked. I ended up getting a job in the French Riviera, managing an incubator, and then their early stage funds. And then the other curious moment came when I followed my husband to Houston without having any connection there. I just decided to jump the pond, and 12 years later, I've been involved in all these amazing things because I felt that in the first part of my career was more about me trying to fit in the venture world, the banking world. And then I decided I don't need to fit in. I can create more spaces and allow other people that are different to fit in.
Can you talk about that, like your own individual brand, and just sort of like for those that are listening, like that's a hard thing, like working for a big organization like Citi, and you had classmates at London Business School, and tracking all these, like it's hard for people to sort of like bring their full authentic self. Like what are some of the things that anchor you in that sort of each day?
That reminds me of that quote, like, why would you try to fit in when you're made to stand out? And like, it's something it's always resonated with me really well. I'm a different human. And I think that like, you're so spot on with that though. Like I think so often we will kind of conform into a reality in order to fit into, that kind of box, so to speak. And if you're a round peg in a square hole, you're never really going to fit very well. You can shrink yourself down and change your shape as much as you want, but you're still a round peg. And it'd be interesting. I love that. Thanks for kind of bringing that up. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think, that's where innovation comes, right? By being the odd one out and still being able to bring a lot of value. I remember someone in a podcast told me they should have, they have like the bring your puppy to work day, and it's like, why don't you bring yourself to work today, right? Your whole self. And that's what I've been trying to do. And sometimes that meant that I had to exit some companies because they didn't like my whole self. And now I've been trying to embrace companies that do like my whole self. And for that, I had to also set expectations, right? Like, this is what I do. I want to do climate, but I also invest through portfolio and diversity. If that's a part of my whole self that you don't like, maybe I won't do the other part. So I think expectation setting is critical. And for, innovation makers like us, these intersections of very, very different parts are the ones that create magic, right? That serendipity. And it's always worked for me. The Latinx, the women, the climate, it's always worked.
So that's a really interesting point. If we kind of like pause for a moment in one of those moments in time when you're in an organization and it's just not vibing, like that takes a significant amount of self-awareness. It takes a significant amount of self-confidence and a level of resiliency that is super critical to be able to recognize that, maintain your humanity in that moment, and be strategic about finding that kind of next path. And I would just really love for you to like take us to one of those moments in time and like, how did that feel? How did that look? And how did you kind of advance onward in your journey?
So, I've had this kind of truth moments that have been, difficult. And I still remember, because I always have people who become suddenly like mirrors and help me discover a lot of things, right? And I had two of those moments where, I was faced with this culture clash where, it was pretty obvious that this was not going to happen. And you always think like, well, I could still wing it. I mean, I could still stay here, just quiet quit or do my own thing on the side and all that. But then these amazing mirrors that I had the luck to encounter would tell me, well, isn't it your responsibility to speak up for this and make sure that, aren't you a diversity champion and suddenly you're being bullied? How can it be, right? Are you making sure that you could quiet quit and leave, but aren't you responsible and make sure that people understand what's going on in here so that, at least you can pave the path for other generations that, might be benefiting from you stepping up and speaking out? So I think that sense of responsibility for speaking up for people who couldn't has led to the decisions I had, because I've been very blessed with a career where I know that I can get another job. I have a global network, so I can get another job. I can make my own job, but many other people can't. And if I don't speak up about some things that are happening in some organizations, they will have to endure what I had to endure, and I don't want that to happen.
There's a Jay-Z line, and he says, everyone around you might be crazy, but you're the one that's insane. And it's always stuck with me so much. And it does, like, you get to a point where you can start to feel like you are literally insane. And you know, in your core of your being and your humanity, like, you're exactly who you are supposed to be. And maybe it's not fitting here. And so that's just really beautiful that you were able to muster up that insight and that self-awareness and that courage and that bravery to make those important decisions, you know, and call out to anyone that's going through that in their journey, like, you know, muster up that courage and be brave and, like, find that right spot, because you can thrive and you need to thrive.
Yeah, I think creating optionality, and I'm talking mostly for women and diverse founders, is key, right? I think at the beginning of my career, I was very full on to everything I do, which hasn't changed. But now I think my investor hat has kind of rubbed in, and it's like, diversify what you do. And that's why you see me doing all these very different things too, because I don't want just one thing to make me happy, right? It's about your portfolio of happiness. And what happens if suddenly one of these big pillars that make that were to fail? Well, you still have other eggs in other baskets, right? So I think for women and minorities, I was very lucky that I was in a privileged place where I could decide to leave a job because it didn't fit any longer with my values, but many people can't. So creating that optionality very early on, that's why I tell a lot of women and minorities, start investing early, start creating a portfolio of things, start diversifying where your revenue comes from, because then you will be able to stand up and make those tough decisions.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us here at South by Southwest. I know you have a busy schedule. You've got a fun activity you've got to get to and go relax on a beach. So we don't want to hold you up from that for too long.
Thank you.
But this has been awesome.
Thank you. Always a pleasure being with you guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you for listening. Join Brad and Scott next time on the Curiosity Podcast.